Welcome to Stubbs with Jason. S-T-U-B-B. S spells Stubbs. S-T-U-B-B. S spells Stubbs. S spells Stubbs. Hey people, welcome to Subs with Jason, where I discuss movies, music, TV, pretty much all kinds of things on all kinds of screens. This week I want to talk about something pretty cool. 10 years of the Monsterverse. Woo! The Monsterverse being the Legendary Pictures series of Godzilla and Kong movies that have come out since 2014. So, it's been pretty darn successful at this point in time. They are, like 5 movies in, and this latest one looks like it's still chugging along at the box office. It's also available at home for home consumption at this point. If you've been waiting for that, get out there and rent it and check that baby out. So, just kind of want to talk about some of the things, just kind of do a short little reflection, on the last 10 years. So, leading up to 2014 Godzilla, there had been a 10-year gap since the last Toho Godzilla movie. It was made released in 2004. It's called Godzilla Final Wars. To me, that is a pretty disappointing movie. So, I kind of had a taste in my mouth with Godzilla at this point in time. And, years had gone on, and it kind of worked out perfectly, right? Like, I got married and, life had started building a life and doing all that stuff in this slower Godzilla time. But, I'm not going to lie, as I was out there, and, get on the internet, killing time, I was always kind of looking for Godzilla news, and things just trickled and took forever. And so many different projects went up and down, and you just was like, I don't know if this is ever going to happen. And then finally it just did, 2012, they started really officially releasing a teaser, and it started moving, and it was like, cool, this is really going to happen. So after all that, got our way to 2014. I remember, went to AMC, checked it out at the IMAX screen up there at, Easton for all of you local Central Ohioans. I was pumped, and, it was a full house. We all went in. I just went with my cousin, left the kids at home. They were younger. I was selfishly concerned with having to take a child to the bathroom in the middle of the movie, which was obviously, if you've had little kids, that's just a regular thing you have to do. So this was kind of a unique, thing for me, and checked it out. Absolutely loved it. It was a serious, it's a movie that took itself seriously. Was patient with its Godzilla delivery. It didn't overwhelm you with Godzilla time. It took the big swings probably to a detriment. Like I would say, if you've watched, all of this conversation, by the way, is going to be assuming you've watched these movies. So just general ideas, but maybe sometimes into a little detail. So just be warned. If you haven't watched any of these, just back out at this point in time. You don't want to hear the rest of this. So, but like cutting away at that airport fight, like the night of, I was like, oh, they got us. Like, oh my gosh. But like, as I've gone back and watched 2014, it's like, this is the one you should have left in. Should have left the airport fight in the movie. Just make it a minute or so. Just let them have a little brush up, But anyways, Godzilla gets a great introduction. I love the Mutos. I think the cast is pretty good. Like, I think everybody would agree that, it's kind of a disappointment that they kill off Bryan Cranston so soon. But I think that's all of us. And I think that's all of us being a victim of the Breaking Bad hype train at that point in time. Because I would argue that if you talk to younger viewers, they probably don't even, it probably doesn't even click with them. Like, he just died. That guy died. Okay, well, this is a movie about his son anyway, right? So, and I know a lot of people rag on Aaron Taylor Johnson in that movie, and I mean, he's just fine. I don't think there's really anything wrong with him. I think everybody would agree that The Halo jump sequence is like one of the coolest sequences we've seen on film in a long time. Visually striking, like that poster, that trailer, all of that, just really lands, just really crushes. Gareth Edwards, it's his first major production. I think he just did a fantastic job on this movie. Not saying it's perfect, but as far as an entry point, it's a great entry point. It's a great place to jump off from. And then obviously, when Godzilla finally gets to let loose and they have that three-way battle in San Francisco, it's great. I mean, it opens up and it's fun and it's good and it's got great visual. It's got great spectacle. That's a great movie to see on a big screen. And then, it all kind of builds towards the atomic breath scene, the first atomic breath scene. And let me tell you, that crowd went nuts that I went with. Like, I don't think any of us really realized it was happening at the first moment. But when we did, it was like, oh my gosh, didn't realize that it didn't even click that they'd been holding it back to me at that point in time. That crowd went nuts and it was incredible. And I just loved that feeling. And those are why I know some people are very split on this. Like, some people want a very quiet experience when they go see a movie. Like, they hate when people clap and all that stuff. And honestly, I totally get that. Like, I can respect and understand that. Like, you just want to be able to see and hear things. And I could say there's been other movies where, I've missed lines of dialogue because of the reaction being so, lasting so long. And it almost makes you think that we're going to, almost get to a Dora the Explorer kind of style of movie telling, movie making at one point in time. Like, are they going to pause and wait and give the audience a moment to have that? And I think that they do. For example, Spider-Man No Way Home, when Andrew Garfield shows up, that movie legit pauses for audience applause. It's just like, okay, yeah, Andrew Garfield's here. Let's let everybody get it out of their system, and then we'll move on. So, while I say will we, I guess now that I'm thinking about, some movies do. Some movies are thinking about that. Anyway, Godzilla has this atomic breath, and it's incredible. And it's, everything I'd been waiting for so long. And then you get to the, end moment at the movie where he does what's called the Godzilla fans have dubbed the kiss of death, where he just decapitates that Muto with his atomic breath. And it's just incredible. It just lands. That just works, guys. I don't care. I don't care what you say. I think if you put that on, that clip, that section, you put that little moment on in front of most people, they'd be like, I'd watch more of that. Yeah, you'd watch more of that. Yes, you would. Absolutely. So, but yeah, loved Godzilla 2014, great entry point. Another thing I got to chuckle at is one of my buddies. This is one of my really good friends. I remember him and another friend had went to go see it, and their first message back to me was, I didn't know Godzilla could blow fire, and it was just like, how are we how are we friends? How do you not know this? But, again, I guess there's just things that people, again, everybody gets stuck in their own bubbles, right? So, anyway. The last time I saw that movie was at a $5 screening on a $5 Tuesday at Marcus and Pickerington, and it was late June, something like that, and I was just like, I knew it was going to be leaving theaters. I didn't know if we'd ever get another one. I was just trying to soak it in one last time. So kids and I went there on a Tuesday afternoon, and it was still an almost packed theater, I would say 70% full, and nobody made it. It was all quiet, through most of the movie. When atomic breath and everything like that happens. However, at the end, when Godzilla decapitates Muto, people start clapping and cheering. In a movie, it was a month and a half, 2 months or a month and a half or whatever after this movie had come out. It was still making people cheer. I just thought that was incredible. I never would have thought that. I never thought there'd be that kind of reference for a Godzilla movie in my lifetime. So, anyway, that's 2014. Next movie up was 2017's Kong Skull Island. Listen, this might be my favorite one still. This is definitely one of the best ones. It's got just such a tremendous cast. If you haven't seen it, Tom Hiddleston, Brie Larson, Sam Jackson. It's got, John C. Reilly. John C. Reilly shows up halfway in this movie and just steals it. Like, this movie is going, it's fine. Like, it's starting to kind of, this movie is just on the edge of starting to maybe slip into a droop. And John C. Reilly just shows up and breathes life into this thing that carries it through the rest of the movie. And, it's just great. He is incredible in this movie. I love it so much. Anyways, great soundtrack, great visuals, great monster fight sequences. Like, it checks all the boxes. If somehow Kong Skull Island slipped past your radar, or slipped past you, or got by, however you want to, if Kong Skull Island got by you somehow and you didn't watch it, go back and watch Kong Skull Island. Because again, that's just the main cast of some, kind of the main bullet points. There's people in supporting roles that you're going to see, and you're like, well, they're in everything. I didn't even bring up John Goodman. John Goodman's in this movie. He's a big part of this movie. Oh, man. Kong Skull Island, guys. It's incredible. Great little battle sequences. Kong gets to be a hero. He's still smaller at this point in time. He does some great battles at the end when he's fighting with the parts off the boat, when he clears off the tree and uses that. Just, yeah, man, I'm all about it. And then you get to the end and it's got a Godzilla King of the Monsters post-credits tease, where you get to see a look of a cave painting that's got Ghidorah and all the other. And look, man, yeah. Kong Skull Island, whew, it's huge. I love it. It's so good. So good. All right, so moving on to 2019 Godzilla King of the Monsters. Look, this is another one that has a really good cast. Got a bunch of people who I like. None of them are superstars, but like Millie Bobby Brown's first movie is this movie. Kyle Chandler, Tom Middleditch. It's got Ice Cube's son, O'Shea Jackson. He is one of my favorite characters in this universe. I just want him to be back in something. It's just a small bit role, but he crushes it. Bradley Whitford is in this movie. Bradley Whitford, famously Eric from Billy Madison, just plays a monarch guy and just crushes it, man. Like, Sally Hawkins is in this movie. Vera Farm, whatever her name is, she's in this. Well, she was in The Departed and Bates Motel series and all that stuff. But man, let me tell you, the cast in 2019 is incredible. This time they've brought proper Toho monsters into the property. You got Godzilla, you've got King Ghidorah, you've got Mothra, you've got Rodan. I was super psyched to see how Hollywood was going to take on all of these monsters. And I gotta say, overall, I walked out of this movie really disappointed. Like, I think maybe because of those characters. And then the other problem that I had, not the characters, the monsters, the monsters let me down. And where Kong Skull Island, clearly understood the line of, all right, we've got time for people. And this is their time. And when it's time to let these things fight, we understand to, as Ken Watanabe says, let them fight and get the heck out of the way. This movie doesn't do that. Godzilla King of the Monsters, falls victim to trying to recreate the cinematography from in the teasing from 2014. When that was, again, at this point in time, we didn't need that again. You just we needed to see what was really happening, right? And again, that's not to say that there aren't great monster bits. There's there's micro sections of this movie that work really well. The Rodan sequence, when Rodan comes out of the volcano and goes chasing the Argo, it's the best sequence of the movie. It's perfect. To me, it's like a perfect monster movie sequence. So I don't know. I think the other problem with King of the Monsters for me was I remember being upset that they had used the oxygen destroyer, and the oxygen destroyer for Godzilla fans has a very heavy implication. And sure, maybe they might come back to that, but they have not. And I knew they weren't going to do that. It was just too soon. It was just too soon to bring something like that in there. And that again, might not mean anything to anybody, really, as far as the general viewer goes and all that stuff. So, but, I think the other big problem I had with this movie was the marketing. Like, man, this movie showed everything in the trailers and even in the TV spots. Like, I was trying to avoid them, and you just couldn't. And they were marketing the heck out of it. Again, I think they thought this is going to be the movie that takes this franchise to the next level and starts really bringing it in. But again, it's just not that strong of a movie, and it's kind of dark and it's kind of messy. And again, they kind of dropped the ball with all of those monsters who have these incredible legacies, Oh well. So yeah, 2019 King of the Monsters, I can easily say is my least favorite one. Although, with that in mind, I've probably watched it a handful of, if not a dozen times, and I do find myself kind of enjoying it a little more. So again, that also could have been a movie that, as I went into it, probably carried too much of what I wanted it to be, wasn't quite open to what it was going to be. And then the other thing with the marketing was too long. Like, they showed the first teaser for that movie way too early. Like, it was like a year and a half. It was like a year and a half. And you were seeing that teaser in the movie theaters for it. And it's just like, I don't think we're made to see things that soon anymore. Like, you've just got to have a shorter marketing window in my mind. Like, your entire marketing campaign for a movie at this point in time should be within 6 months. And I think we've gotten there, like, for the most part. I mean, sure, there might be some things where you might see a very short tease 1 year out. But, like, I think a lot of stuff is really getting better about this, which is good. That's my preferred. So, the next movie in the series will be 2021's Godzilla vs. Kong. Look, going into Godzilla vs. Kong after King of the Monsters had bombed at the box office, I was like, well, this is probably not looking good. This is probably going to be the end of this for me. And, I didn't really know how to feel about it. And again, like, of course, after the trailers from King of the Monsters, I was trying to avoid the trailers very strictly for Godzilla vs. Kong. But I broke down and I watched the trailer for Godzilla vs. Kong. And it just spoke to the child that lives inside of me so strongly. I got so excited, and it was, and that was it. And I tried to say I didn't really watch anything else. I don't remember. I don't think I did. Things came on TV. I would close my eyes and look away. If a trailer came on in the theaters, I'd get up and leave, or I'd cover my ears and just close my eyes. Like, again, that's just where I'm at this point. And I might sound like a crazy person, but I want to enjoy the movie when it's time to watch the movie. I don't want 60% of the movie and then to go and catch the last 40% on a big screen. Like, I want to see the whole thing, and I want to be able to take it in as it's intended to be taken in, especially movies like this. So much of what is going to leave its impression with you is the spectacle and the visuals. So when they ruin that by giving it to you on these measly 55, 60-inch screens we all live with at home, I'm sorry, I'm laughing. Come on, guys. Let's, I remember 24 inches, 32-inch TVs, CRT, standard tube TVs, right? Like, you were living really well if you were crushing it on something like that, right? Anyways, you all get what I'm saying. All right, so Godzilla vs. Kong, just in general, it's light, it's really messy. Like, the story in it is just a mess. You know what I mean? There's so much of it that's a mess, but it's just kind of a light, fun ride, and it's just a little romp, and you get to watch these monsters finally duke it out, and it's just great to see them. It's the monsters really get to highlight and get showcased here. There, and it's great to. I was like, okay, finally, it took us. We're in our third movie, and Godzilla finally is seen in the daylight out here brawling and just getting at it, and it's awesome. And the fight out in the ocean is a lot of fun on top of the aircraft carrier. I love Kong's personal characterization that they give him, the sign language, the relationship with Gia, all of that's like, there's so many strong elements that they established in Godzilla vs. Kong, and I was really glad to see how they, and now we've seen where it carries on and moves on to the next entry. But Godzilla vs. Kong, lots of fun. Mechagodzilla's just kind of thrown in there, and you know what, honestly, that's okay. Sure, I'd love for it to get a little more, I don't know, do something, anything more interesting with all the human characters in that movie, but again, I don't think they were really that concerned in that one, to be honest with you. So, again, Mechagodzilla shows up at the end, they brawl. The Godzilla Kong Mechagodzilla battle is one of the best. I absolutely, actually, the Godzilla Kong battle in Hong Kong at night with the neons, it's just spectacular. I love it. It's so much fun. Their battles, just incredible, right? But the Godzilla and Kong and Mechagodzilla battle at the end of the movie, after Godzilla's gotten it handed to him and Kong gets brought back, gets in there, gives him some lethal weapon, fixes his shoulder, gets in there and fights. They all fight. Godzilla charges up that axe. King Kong just dispatches Mechagodzilla with it. It's fantastic. It's great. It's fun. It's, again, one of my favorite moments, if not my favorite moment. Like, the hair on my arms raised. Like, it's, Kong just has this, he hops on there and he rips that head off, and he's just, oh man, so much fun, so good, so cool, so rewarding. Again, I was so pumped. And so when that movie ends, Godzilla gets, Kong's just worn out. The bro has just had just the roughest night, man. And, Godzilla comes, kind of snarls at him like, put that axe down and I'll leave. So then you kind of see they kind of make a little unspoken agreement. Godzilla roars like a big dumb maniac. And then just swims away into the ocean. And to me, it was the perfect ending. Like, I was like, so when I had seen it, I was like, oh, you know what, if this is it, I'm totally cool with this being it. Like, I was bummed that, like, it took us so long to get to that point, but I would have been okay with that. Like, so, obviously, Kong goes down to Hollow Earth, and it's got great soundtrack. It's good stuff. Overall, Godzilla vs. Kong, it's one of my favorites. I absolutely love it. So the last one, not the last one, but the latest entry is Godzilla and Kong, The New Empire. For me, it's kind of all house money at this point, right? Like, that last one could have ended it. It would have been fine. I would have been good. But, like I said, this is house money. I don't know if any of these movies have really given me the Godzilla movie that I've always longed for from an American production studio, or an American production. But I just don't think this group is interested in making that movie that I really want. But at this point, why would they be? Like, that Godzilla vs. Kong came out and ended up crushing. Like, it made a lot more money than they thought, right? So this is their 5th installment, and it's their most successful installment. Like, when does that happen, right? Like, when is number 5 the most successful installment of anything? Like, the only thing I could think of was the MCU, and then I kind of worked my way through it, and it's like, at first I was like, yeah, number 5, that would be the first Avengers movie, and yeah, it made $1 billion. So no, I was wrong. Completely forgot about the Ed Norton Hulk movie that happened. So technically, number 5 in the MCU was Captain America, and it only made like $360 million, which is a tragedy because Captain America: The First Avenger is a great movie, so much better than people realize. I think if you haven't watched that in a while, go back and watch it. That movie is solid, and it's got a great cast. But you know what? That's another conversation for another time. Anyway, obviously, the Monsterverse isn't anywhere near the cash cow that the MCU ended up being, right? Like, in its prime, they strung together like 4 or 5 billion-dollar movies, and I think 2 of those movies made like $2 billion each. So, yeah. Speaking of that, though, I'm pretty sure Endgame broke me in the theater. Like, broke my movie joy. Like, They had nailed that ending from a viewer satisfaction standpoint so well. I wasn't sure I could ever feel satisfaction like that again at a movie theater. But again, I was wrong. Thankfully, Godzilla vs. Kong brought the joy back, brought the joy of the movies back to me. And maybe to the nation too a little bit, right? Like, we were just coming out of a pandemic in 2021. We were coming out of our lockdown phase. This was the first success after the thick of the lockdown phase of the pandemic. It made $500 million, and that was with it releasing the same day on HBO Max. So I'm still a little shocked at how well that did. To that point now, I'm still a little shocked at how well the new Empire is done. And I guess I shouldn't be, probably now more than ever, there's a hunger for entertainment that's made just for the sake of entertainment. We're getting preached at and lectured at by anyone with a keyboard or a social media account or a group text. And, oh, God, do you guys remember life before group texts? Oh, it was beautiful. Anyway, it's a lot of ranting. New Empire. That's what we're talking about right now. All right, so Godzilla and Kong, New Empire. My impressions are, I had a really great time watching this movie. Like, I think part of that is because as I saw a little bit of the marketing, I think it was fine. I wish they would have held back a couple of shots, but it was nowhere near the dump that Godzilla King of the Monsters was. But with that, just my gut was like, we're going too far. Like, Godzilla vs. Kong didn't really work. It just barely worked. Like, it's taped together, and I felt like we were as thin as we could get. So I kind of expected a really bad movie here, and I was just kind of bracing for a bomb that was not very good. And I gotta say, it's not that. This movie is not that. I don't think it's not a particularly strong movie. I think everything's fine. I think the humans get a little better. I think they understand how to manage that better than they did the last time. I think the characters that you like, like the girl Gia who speaks to Kong now for 2 movies. Like, she's a good character. She's fun. She's just a kid. But, like, there's just something about it. Seeing that relationship, it works in this movie. They bring in a guy, they call him Trapper. He's played by a guy named Dan Stevens. He was in Abigail. He's so much better in this. Not that he's bad in Abigail, but, like, he's just having the best time in this movie. Like, he seems like he's having the best time. Same with I think his name is Brian Michael Tyree or something like that. He's like a podcaster. His name is Bernie. He was in Godzilla vs. Kong. He's in this one too. Those guys just seem like they are fully, like, they know what kind of movie they're in, and they play it perfectly. So, but yeah, overall, I had a good time. There's some great music in this movie. The visuals are fun. There's a couple of really fantastic scenes. There's one scene particularly where you get Mothra, Godzilla, and King Kong all in one frame. This is pretty much my Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman frame. You know what I mean? Like, this is... I never would have even thought to want something like this, though, to be honest with you. And it's just great. Scar King is just fine. He's just not really developed. They just don't do a ton with him. They spend more time talking about how bad he's going to be versus him really being bad, which I feel is kind of like a cinema sin, so to speak. But the other monster that you may not, just if you just saw some of the teases, you may not know about, is Shimo. And Shimo is like this giant ice dragon that Scar King is enslaved and uses, and Shimo's just awesome. It looks great. Has a cool little encounter with Kong and all that. I don't know. Overall, this movie goes really zany and over the top, but it's just at, like, the perfect level. Like, yeah, I think everything kind of hits at the right points, at the right level on all of that. The cast is fun, like I said, in general, for the most part. Rewatching, where, like, all of those other ones, I can rewatch most of these and really love them. I've seen New Empire 3 times. I thought about going to see it today, and I still might. Who knows? The day is kind of young, right? But at the second and third time, I was like, all right, this thing isn't as brisk as I thought it was. Like, the first night, I was all hyped, and even though I was expecting low, like, it quickly tricked me into realizing, like, I'm going to have a lot of fun here. And I did. I had so much fun the first time I watched it. Subsequent viewings are just kind of eh. You would ask me the first night, I would have been like, well, this is probably the best one. I know my dad thought it was the best one. I think that was the other part of it, too. It is a perfect movie for boomers who grew up enjoying Godzilla movies casually. This is perfect. Just almost tailor-made for them in my mind. Sorry to call out specific age groups like that. But I think that kind of impacted it too. I still really do enjoy this movie. But I can see where it's one that I may not watch that often. But on the other hand, they all kind of fall into that, I could put these things on in the background all the time. I would loop all 5 of them at this point, if that was something I felt, was practical. All right, so this has gone on way too long. I'm really sorry. But yeah, just wanted to kind of take a moment and acknowledge the 10 years. Oh, and then the Monarch series on Apple TV. I'm not even going to go into any details, because a lot of you may not know hardly anything about that, if anything at all. But I definitely recommend going and watching that Monarch series on Apple. Definitely a great series. Really well made. I've really enjoyed it. Only other item in the Monsterverse that was out there to discuss is there are tie-in comics. I can't say there's anything there that I'd highly recommend. It kind of feels like they just get a bit wordy and too heavy on the exposition. I feel like somebody comes up with a movie idea, and instead of just tossing that out or whatever, someone goes, all right, hey, just adapt this and put it into like 3 issues of a comic. There's just too much they're trying to do in too little of a window. So these are all kind of passable. Overall satisfaction, though, it wasn't exactly what I was looking for, but I've enjoyed where we've ended up. And I get why we've gotten to where we've gotten. As far as the future goes, they hired David Callahan. They're bringing David Callahan back. He wrote the 2014 Godzilla, and he also did work on the Spider-Verse movies. So I'm really hoping that these guys feel a little bit of pressure, feel a bit challenged by the success Godzilla -1 found with its dark tone. And I talked about it like, oh, well, none of these movies really delivered what I wanted. Godzilla -1 is literally the movie I waited my entire life for. Like, that scratched an itch I never thought was going to happen. Like, I can't recommend that movie enough on every level. Like, I feel it's a shame that it wasn't nominated for Best Picture last year. And you might think that sounds crazy, but watch that movie and then watch the movies that were nominated for Best Picture last year and have that conversation with me then. Because again, it should have been. It just should have been. So like I said, with them wrapping things up, I think they've got a potential for a really amazing finale. So, when I'm talking about finales, I think about Endgame. That was like the most successful recent finale. There's been a lot of where there's no shortage of disappointing finales. I think you all know what I'm talking about. But I think Endgame works so well because essentially it rewards us as viewers for being along for the ride of all of the previous movies, right? Like, there's little things that are dripped in that are small payoffs, for the entire journey that we had leading up to it. So I do have ideas here. I have a lot of ideas, but there's one that I really so here's my general overview of what I would do with the next Godzilla movie. It would be Godzilla vs. Destroya. At the beginning of the movie, I want to see Godzilla and Kong are like proper mates. Like, they are hanging out. They are bros. Like, Skull Island is now Monster Island. Like, Mothra, Rodan, any monster you've shown and you want to include that's still alive in this universe, just have them all chilling, right? And like, as long as Godzilla is acknowledged as the king, that's all good. But I think I would like to have a thing where Godzilla is walking by and you kind of see some of the monsters kind of give the little submissive look, and Kong doesn't really do it. They kind of share a glare, but he just keeps moving. Like, I think that I at least want them to have an understanding, all right? So, Skull Island's now Monster Island. A Destroyer shows up in a form while Godzilla's out dispatching a Muto that's acting out somewhere in the world. And Destroyer just attacks all the monsters that are on Monster Island while he's away. Destroyer wrecks them, essentially, drives them back to a point where they have to hop into a Hollow Earth entry portal, and Kong's so concerned that he destroys the Hollow Earth entry point behind them. So Destroyer can't follow him down there. And that's mostly, just there to make it so Destroyer can't follow him down there. So, after that, Godzilla and Destroyer face off. Godzilla returns to Monster Island, I want to note. And Godzilla and Destroyer face off. And I want Godzilla to be aggressively positioning himself between Destroyer and, like, one section of the island or something that's going on, you know what I mean? And when Destroyer makes a move on it, they have a brief battle. Godzilla is wounded. And Destroyer leaves because he's wounded, but Godzilla just kind of lays to rest, and Destroyer's gone. And that's when we introduce a little Godzilla. Because I can't believe we haven't gotten into Baby Godzilla and any of that. Like, we're 5 in, and there's no Baby Godzilla. It just blows my mind. The marketing alone. Anyway. Anyway, so Godzilla recognizes that there's a new, threat to the surface. So what's he do? He decides to go and power up again and level up, like he did in Godzilla and Kong. Except this time, as he does this, he starts going into meltdown mode and burning mode. Since he's still got a lot of energy left over from the last movie, we're going to be like, the Monarch will recognize, like, well, Godzilla's too juiced, he's going to melt down. And then they realize the implications of that, which is like, well, this is going to be an extinction level event. If this all sounds familiar, it's because if you've watched Godzilla vs. Destroyer, yeah, it's very similar. I'm not trying to hide that at all. They should have been leaning into the Heisei era of Godzilla movies anyway. So anyway, Monarch has moved little Godzilla to a facility in Janjira, which is where the first atomic scene happens, essentially where the beginning of 2014 happens. So you get to come back to that location. And this is kind of where the fight, eventually it all ends, and it all kind of sets up from there. Destroyer shows up in a final form. All of the monsters show up there. Destroyer is just wrecking all of those monsters. It needs to feel like there's no way to beat this thing. But as Godzilla's fighting more, the nuclear fission within him is reaching a critical point. Like, spikes are starting to melt down on his back as he unleashes atomic breath attacks. And eventually, this gets to a point where it's so out of control, he's just directing this nuclear, energy straight, and Destroyer gets wiped out. Godzilla finally wipes him out. All the monsters are there. Little Godzilla's there. Everybody's hurt. Well, at this point in time, Godzilla's going into full meltdown mode. The world is literally going to end. Throughout the movie, along with moving, Baby Godzilla, I think the Monarch side plot should be them assembling all of the supporting characters back from the last movies that are around to develop cooling weapons and to attack to come up with the plan of how do we handle Godzilla's meltdown situation. And they all come together and they say, well, we got to freeze him. We got to take, there's only a physical route is the only way we have to go. None of the roles have to be major by any of these characters, but just getting them there would be fun. And it should be light and easy. Rebecca Hall could be the one bringing it all together. As they develop these weapons, we're just trying to minimize the event. We know it's not enough, but that's when old Kong puts his hand on Shimo's head as if to tell him, like, buddy, you know what you have to do. So Shimo finally starts blasting Godzilla with its ice breath, and that's enough chilling power to prevent the end of the world, more or less. But Godzilla is still lost. He completely melts down. His energy would be shown releasing into the air. Baby Godzilla absorbs it. Kong and all Kong finally bows to Godzilla. Kong would bow for Baby Godzilla, essentially, to honor Godzilla's sacrifice and imply that, so at that point, Baby and Kong and all of them would go down to Hollow Earth, where Kong will safely raise this young Godzilla. You could have Gia imply that Mothra and all the other monsters will serve as the Earth's protector while this Godzilla grows, So with that in mind, like I said, have Gia be able to communicate with all the monsters telepathically. You got to bring in Kurt Russell. I want to see all of the supporting cast people from all those movies, or as many as you can, because again, there's so many actors that I've really enjoyed. They just haven't got to do a whole lot, so why not just bring them all together? You can put them all in like a control room at the end. As Godzilla doesn't destroy the world as he melts down, you can see some of them slow motion, like celebrating, but also some of them mourning the loss of Godzilla. Then eventually you see kind of like news bits and everything where like the world is mourning Godzilla. Yeah, but again, so you've got the door open for any of those monsters to have solo movies after that. You can keep moving forward with Kong. Godzilla's still available to an extent, and it's just like whenever you feel like you want to properly bring Godzilla back, you can do that. You just got to do a bit of a time jump or just start finding a reason to make him grow faster, which shouldn't be hard, right? And that's it. Yeah. So again, mostly just the end of Godzilla vs. Destroy the Japanese version, but Kong and Shimo being there, and Shimo being what helps cool him enough to prevent a worldwide kind of extinction level event, so to speak, right? It's a lot of rambling. That's a lot of nerd stuff I just threw at you guys. I don't even know. Hopefully you all followed that. I don't know. The other option is obviously you can go Mecha King Ghidorah, just make a destroy all monster style movie where you go big and over the top instead of dark. Yeah, I'm fine with that too. The destroyer round would be pretty cool, but there's breadcrumbs for both of them in these movies at this point. So, yeah, why not? So, keeping nerd news brief because you've heard a lot of me. I'm done with all that. All right, so really quick, Cillian Murphy's coming back for 28 years later, confirmed. That's really cool. EA Sports College Football 25 dropped a trailer. That's pretty exciting. They haven't had one of those games in well over a decade. It looks like they put a lot of attention to detail in terms of the traditions that you see at the different universities. They show the Illabuck, you see Penn State Whiteout, you see the Iowa Wave. Yeah, it's all pretty cool, obviously. Brutus shot in there, Buckeye Michigan's in there. I know a lot of people have been waiting for this a lot of time. It's been waiting a long time for this to come back, so I know it comes out this summer. I probably won't buy it because, I just won't. But I hope it's really great, and I hope to get a chance to get my hands on it at some point in time. We'll just have to wait and see. So, in other news, X-Men 97 wrapped up on Disney+. I haven't started it. Heard it's really good. Definitely adding that to my watch list. I finished Fallout, the TV series, on Amazon. It's fantastic. Definitely mature viewing. But I give it a very general recommendation at this point. Like, you don't need to play the games. It's just good. It's just good. Rings of Power Season 2 dropped a trailer. I have not watched a single minute of that series. And when it started, I heard a lot of people were really into it, and it seemed like by the end it lost all of its momentum. So maybe it's worth watching. Maybe somebody out there, you guys can let me know if I need to give that a shot. Final note was GTA 6. And both the Mortal Kombat and Five Nights at Freddy's movie sequel, all of those things got dates in the back end of 2025. So it's a lot of things my son will have to look forward to that I'm sure I'll be present for. All right, guys. Long one this week. Had a lot of fun. I've got, like I said, got another summer movie preview, and I know we've got Mad Max Furiosa coming up, so be on the lookout for those things. Going to try and get some video clips out there and all that jazz. If you could, keep following, like, share, get it out there, and I appreciate all your time. You guys have a blessed one. Bye.
Stubs all done.